So are we live right now?
Yep, it just started going live, and then I'll hang up and check it on my end and text or call you if there's anything going on. So
Okay, so we are live. Matt's gonna monitor for a little bit to see if anything's going on, and he'll let me know. So it's all yours, Catherine.
Okay, it says 6:30, and I'd like to call to order, and I'd like a roll call, please, Tasia. Is Tasia on there?
Yeah.
Roll call from Tasia.
Yep, give me just 1 second. Bruce Belargin.
Here.
Katie Thermist.
Here.
Bob Gunther.
Here.
Patty Jo Forsberg.
Here.
Catherine Cranston.
Here.
Lori Belargin.
Here.
Roxanne Kendall.
Here.
Okay, I'm going to review the protocols, and I actually looked them up because I a couple of them aren't really applicable to this, but share the air certainly is. Listen while others are speaking, which really helps if you, I found in a lot of my Zoom meetings and Google Hangouts, if you mute when you're not talking, it helps with background noise if you have kids around. Solve problems, seek solutions and clarity, engage fully, stay focused, take care of yourself, and have fun. The one that was on there was phones off the table, and I thought that would not be appropriate for this meeting. So I'm redoing the protocols. So hopefully give me a thumbs up if you think that would be okay with you guys. Just a thumbs up agreement would be great. All right. Bruce Belargin has agreed to read the district mission.
Together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities.
Thank you, Bruce. Were there any public comments signed up, Dr. Bezic?
You know, since our phones have been down for the last week and a half, I haven't received any there, and have not received any electronic questions to the board.
Okay. It might be something, though, to put out there for the public that certainly you can email to Dr. Bezic if you would like to participate in this public comment. I think the public still needs to have a format, even though we're Zooming it here. So right now, it looks like there is not any public comment signed up. So we're moving on to number 4, which is board reorganization. And Tasia or Mark, can you explain to us kind of how that's going to work?
Well, I'll try, but Tasia's the expert here. So basically what we'll do is have nominations for the chair position to start. And then Tasia, you know, will take it over from there as far as instructing you how to vote. And in fact, Tasia, you know, and then once the chair is elected, then the chair will run the rest of the meeting. So Tasia, do you want to walk through the procedure here?
And just bear with me because I'm trying to bounce through a couple of screens in order to be efficient on my end. So if I'm a little slow unmuting myself, that's why. If everyone can open the Google Doc that I shared with the board that has the ballots on it, that'll be where you want to start. Once the nominations for the president are made, I will make it so that the president ballot will read those nominations, and I'll also open it up so it's accepting submissions, because right now when you open the link, you wouldn't be able to. So just hold off on opening those links until I let you know that the form is ready. And then we'll just continue that process through. Dr. Bezic and I both have access to the results sheet, so we'll be able to verify the ballots that were cast as well.
So are we looking for nominations from the floor right now for president? Is that what you're saying? And then we actually vote on that document?
Correct.
Okay. So are there any nominations from the floor for board president?
Katie, I would like to nominate Lori Belargin.
Is there a second from the floor?
I second it.
And that was Patty Jo?
Patty. Yep.
Discussion? So now, Tasia, we go in and vote?
No, I need to nominate Catherine Cranston.
Another one, okay. Any seconds for that one?
I'll second that one.
So Lori, are you willing to put your name on the ballot?
Sure.
I will too. So we'll go into the process with Tasia now.
Okay, so give me about 30 seconds max and I'll have this ready. All right, so now if you click on that link to the board president ballot, you should see Catherine and Lori as an option, and then also option to abstain if you so choose.
Tasia, this is Roxanne. Can you give me access to that?
I sure can. Do you need access to the whole form or like to the Google Doc with the links or just to the ballots?
You're on mute, Roxanne.
Just to the ballot, please, Tasia.
Okay. You should have access now. Try it out.
So Tasia, I'm looking at the email that says school board officer election 5/4/20,
Yep.
and neither one is opening for me.
Let me see. No, I should have shared with you. Give me just 1 second.
Okay. Tasia, it works now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
By the way, Tasia, this is pretty slick. Thank
Well,
you.
Amazing.
Hopefully it'll continue to be slick. We'll see.
Don't jump the gun here.
All right, so I'm showing 7 responses. Is that everyone got theirs in?
Yeah.
Okay, let me close the form. And then Mark, if you go into the spreadsheet, you will be able to view the results.
Okay, where's the spreadsheet here? Did you email that to me or?
In that initial email today, yep. With the 2 links.
The initial email, the one, I just had the one with the ballots on it.
The ballot doc and then also the one that had the results. I just resend it so it's fresh in your inbox.
Okay, because I was looking on that email here. Let me get back out there. Let's see, treasurer, president, okay. Okay, I've got them here. It's still loading, but I show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you want the results?
Yeah.
Laura, you're the new board chair.
There we go. Congratulations, Lori. So let's move on then to the nominations for vice president. So anyone have a vice president nomination?
I'd like to nominate Catherine for vice president.
Go online and fill out an application.
I'll second that.
Is that you,
Patty.
Patty?
Yes.
Okay, any other nominations for vice president? All right, so we go into that document, Tasia?
Yeah, give me just 1 second. I will.
Well, we only have one nomination. I'd like to make a motion that we just make it unanimous without going through the document.
Do we have a second on that?
Yep.
Okay. So we have 2 offices left. Is the first one clerk? Is the next one clerk?
Yes.
Do you have a nomination from the floor for clerk?
I nominate Katie for clerk.
I'll second that. Lori, do it again.
I'll make a motion that we cast a unanimous vote for Katie for clerk of the Somerset School Board.
Is there a second on that?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yep.
How you doing there, Tasia? Are we ready to move to the,
Yep, you're good.
okay, the last one was, is it secretary or treasurer? It's treasurer,
Treasurer.
right?
Treasurer.
And Lori, you were a treasurer before.
I was, and I would like to make a motion to have Patty Jo as treasurer.
I'll second that.
I'll make a motion to make that unanimous. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
All right. So Tasia, would you just read the results out loud?
Yep. I have Lori Belargin for board president. Catherine Cranston for vice president. Katie Thermos for clerk. And Patty Jo Forsberg for treasurer.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions? All right. Then I'm going to hand this gavel right over to Lori.
Well, Catherine, I hope I can count on for your assistance.
Well, I think we'll make a good team.
I do too. Let's see then. Policy 0142.5 vacancies is the next item on the agenda. This is a reading so that we can bring it back to the regular session for voting. Patty Jo, do you want to run through that policy?
Yep. So going through the policy, we will eliminate E, which is an addition to it, and then add the last, check the box in the last paragraph to add that last paragraph. And that was it.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about the policy?
No, but whoever has their mic on needs to turn it off.
That was me and my bajillion children. Sorry.
Because I can hear them. Sorry. There we go.
Right, then if there's no questions about item number 5, vacancies, Mark, would you like to take over number 6, the construction update?
Sure. A couple things I want to talk about, and obviously, is if you've seen the pictures I sent out, and you've driven by the site or what have you, they're ahead of schedule. It's been really good with relatively few surprises. Which, as we get through demolition now, that is a big thing, because when you start uncovering walls and digging up things, that's when you find all the things that sins of the past, so to speak. But there's been relatively few of those. The one we'll talk about is this site change that came to me on Thursday afternoon, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the roundabout is in engineering, and they're expecting to have a price to us by the 1st of June for the roundabout. Item B there, the DO and early childhood parking, I would just soon pull that off and not even look at that until we get further down the road. The electronic signage, this is something that I'd like you to weigh in on. They have and I forgot to ask what the budget amount, I couldn't find it right before the meeting here, but I think we have about $90,000 budgeted for monuments. And these are the middle school monument that's out in the middle of the field out there. I think it was there when the old road went by there. And then the one by the high school, by the door 8 down by the football field here, where the DO is pointed at the wrong way. What I would recommend is, we don't have anything down at the elementary school. We have signage on the building saying what building they are. I would rather reallocate that money to an electronic marquee sign out by the entrance on I out there. And again, nothing we have to decide right now. I just wanted to lay that out there. That I just soon reallocate those dollars, because that sign is going to run $50,000 to $70,000 for one that's appropriate for out there. So it's just something to think about. I think we didn't talk about it in this meeting yet, but we had problems. We had problems with the fiber here. We're totally out of phones and internet service at the district office. They dug up the one going to the elementary school, so they were down for, I think, a day maybe, but that's up and running again. So what we're planning on doing is doing some refiber, a new line, really to do this the right way, because the line that got destroyed between the DO and the junction box out here got eaten up by rodents. And so it needs to be replaced, but we're going to add a line between the elementary and the district office, which will come somewhere. I think the bids are somewhere around 19,000, but that will give almost every building a double service. So we'll have a backup redundant, which way it should have been. It really creates a loop, so it can go two ways. And again, we're still working with the bids on that. The only other thing we have is the site change that came to me Thursday, and Bob and Bruce and I've been going, a little back and forth with Wold, and also at our POC meeting today, we talked quite a bit about, why and what and how this come about. And, both Bob from the city side, knows a lot more about it than I do, and Bruce from the construction side can weigh in on this. And basically what it is the design of our retention pond, the one between the high school, the new one between the high school and the middle school, didn't meet standards for what the city engineers wanted, which again, I don't know, Bruce or Bob, do you want to take off on this here? Bruce, you want to start? You don't. Bob, do you want to start?
I can help in a real technical way, just try to boil it down to, so there's a little bit of confusion that the village stormwater management programs is more robust than the DNRs, which it isn't. We can't be more robust than the DNR or more stringent. the modeling needs to produce a reduction of total suspended solids by 80%. The site designer for the village, or excuse me, for the school, after we calculated out all the numbers, came up with a 63% total reduction of the TSS. So in lieu of that, they had to expand the pond, which is where essentially the cost comes from. And that's where you're seeing the change order in the site plan development. So there's a variation of a lot of moving parts with the site layout. And when you start adding pervious and reducing impervious to control that stormwater and essentially trying to remove the sediment that's coming into the infiltration basins, excuse me. So what we try to do our best is get it right at that 80%. We obviously don't want to increase the cost anymore. But what we don't want to do is let you come up short. And this is in the private public sector when they're doing these designs. Because the DNR does essentially hold a permit on that. That doesn't mean that once you get the permit that all of the, the boxes are checked, that you have everything done. The DNR kind of relies on the professional engineer to do all the legwork, do all the calculations, and then prove to the DNR that we have indeed achieved that 80% total suspended solids reduction in the site plan makeup. If we don't, it goes DNR, you got another additional revisions. And once you start making those revisions, and then the cost just becomes, and it's just a kind of a cat chasing the mouse type of thing. So, these things are fairly common. This one's probably on the bigger end of, I would say, a change order, but it's a big piece of property. So essentially that's it in a nutshell. So if there's any questions, I apologize. I'm trying to bring it really kind of down to elementary so you guys can all understand it.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
and
A quick question.
Mhm.
So were there like two different calculations used, Bob, or by
That's
what the DNR approved versus what or
Wold is saying that, their model, use the same model but different software. Is it Bruce what Justin was saying? And it comes with different calculations. And so there is not one model that is standard. There's several models you can use. That's the way I understand it.
Yep. So both are on the WinSlam modeling, and it said if you use one generation from computer software, that doesn't really matter. We typically, the industry standards kind of the HydroCAD model, so that plugs in all the 100-year, 200-year storm events, and then it makes those type of calculations out. So
get you. Okay.
And I guess I wanted to make sure everyone knew that this was something that would have had to happen no matter what money that would have been spent if it had been correct in the bidding documents, the way up to code now, or the spec now, we would have had to pay this in the bid. So this isn't like something that was just uncovered that the subcontractor didn't have. It was a change in the documents. The only thing we talked about, the big thing we talked about in the meeting was having more notice on items like this with Wold and the contractor, so that it's not a 3 days before a meeting. They should have, it was on the log as their changed log as an item. It just didn't have a total on it. And we've asked them to add ballpark numbers going forward. So ahead of time, Mark can see if he sees a flags one that's 100,000 or 60,000 or something. So you guys, everybody, we can all identify it ahead of time. And then just to add, just in experiences, the site is always a big risk. You're always going to have a risk on the site. And once you can get past this stuff, contingency, usually your usage is higher and then it kind of tapers off as you go on the project. So not excited or not happy with having to pay this amount, but I'm not surprised either that the site has forced this. And then the last item was we've been discussing this topic of the ponds at those POC meetings since January. So those, I think it was 3 meetings in a row. And finally we thought at the second meeting in March that we had it taken care of. And that had been addressed, and they thought it was addressed at that time, but obviously it wasn't. So this has been a topic for a while. I guess we just didn't know the magnitude that it was going to come back around after we thought it was addressed. So that's my take on it.
But that's why we have contingency.
Right. So and they even increased the contingency in the site. I think the other contingencies are down at 3 or 4%, and this is at 6 in site, just because of things like this. And this is typical. You have a bigger number in site.
And the only, speaking general construction, the only other surprise we had, and I don't expect this to be a major one, is that north or west wall of the middle school or boys' locker room, that they had to take the whole wall down because it was not good. They had to do a lot of work to that to put windows in, so they figure the cost is not going to be that great a change, from what they had projected at the beginning. And so if you see those pictures, you'll see that full locker room, boys' locker room wall to the outside is gone right now, and that will be rebuilt with structural integrity, which was lacking. So that's probably the only other thing that. Because most of the demo is done right now, both buildings, and that's when you open up and expose everything. And they're very pleased with what they found. They're ahead of schedule, which is a big thing for us. So right now the whole construction is going very well. So, and that site change item is down in the back on the topics for action at the end there. So any other questions about construction?
Mark, I did want to add one thing. Sarah Eichten, I think you're on. You're here tonight. But I did talk to George in the meeting just about the playground and firming up kind of a final date that we had to have that designed, or the plans for that, so we can send that out for RFP so we can get numbers.
Okay.
So I told him by the end of the week
Okay.
to have something between you and him and everybody, what we want and what we need together, so that Dave can send something out. Cause I don't want to, that's going to be 3 months, I think, before we get that here. It's one of those items that can drag on.
Yeah, he just gave me the latest playground draft today, so
Okay.
I'm looking at it. Yep.
All right. So yeah, we just talked about that a little bit during the meeting. Just
Okay.
so you're aware.
Does anybody else have anything about construction? Then Mark and Shannon, would you like to address number 7, commencement?
Sure, I'll start out with that. And as you know, the restrictions we're under from the governor's order, and just with what's all going on with our shelter in place and our site restrictions. We're trying to do our best on trying to look ahead and see how can we bring closure, not just to the school year, but for our seniors, because it's really it's a sad deal we're going through right now. So we're coming up with different options for commencement, and as we move forward with this, I think our options are going to change. It's probably week by week as we hear of more things opening up, and maybe some of the restrictions are eased up a little bit, because a couple of I guess all of our options right now that we'd like to see revolve around an outdoor graduation. We obviously have our football field, but we're very limited parking for that. We do have 2 concert venues in the community that we have access to that are real strong possibilities. I talked to Scott Knutson the other day, just running it by him, and he works very closely with county health. And so anything as we move forward, we'll meet the 3 of us to determine, if we have the right protocols in place to actually hold something. You know, we're under governor's orders that basically we're shut down for this year, which is June 30th. But again, there's different districts are doing different things. But I think as we get down the road a couple more weeks, we'll, you know, plans can start to come into a little bit more concrete. But Shannon got some dates on a plan, and I guess Shannon, why don't you just explain what you got going as far as what you want to communicate to
Sure.
parents?
Yeah, so you know, I've had a lot of conversations with staff, parents, students, just trying to figure out, at least trying to get some loose plans together so that people can start to plan a little bit into the summer in terms of what's happening with graduation, knowing that, you know, the last meeting that we had about this, I was kind of holding out a hope that May 31st would still be an option. That's obviously off the table. So a lot of networking as well with area principals. We have a weekly Middle Border Conference principal meeting, and graduation typically is the #1 agenda item as we're just kind of talking and working with each other about what other people are doing. So, you know, I put together kind of a rough guideline of what potentially could happen. Kind of doing a bit of a hybrid between some virtual celebration for our seniors and then obviously holding out hope that we'll be able to do something in person in terms of graduation. So May 31st, which was our original graduation date. So on May 31st, we are releasing a virtual scholarship video. So that's being put together right now in collaboration with the Somerset Memorial Scholarship Foundation, as well as putting together pieces within that video of any other local independent scholarships that kids are getting. So a link to that video would be released to families, public, on the evening of the 31st. And, you know, then we have kind of a big chunk from there until July. And then we have right now a week in July that we are eyeing up that would kind of be designated as a graduation week. So Monday, July 13th, we kind of kick off the week by re-releasing that virtual scholarship video. Tuesday, July 14th, we would have a virtual senior memory night video. Again, traditionally, senior memory night is kind of filled with all kinds of pictures and cool things from, you know, for our seniors from kindergarten on up. We give out department awards. It's more of an informal kind of fun, you know, piece of the graduation tradition. So that would also be virtual. Hoping for July 15th, we'd be able to do a graduation practice in some way, shape, or form in the morning with our students, and then be able to go and have a senior picnic, which again is another tradition that our seniors engage in every year. And then having Thursday, July 16th in the evening be again some version of a graduation ceremony. So a couple things just to kind of back a few of those things up a little bit. Looking at a Thursday night graduation ceremony for a couple reasons. One, to minimize the interference of potential other summer plans that people may have already in the works. And I've also had parents contact me about graduation parties that are already planned kind of all through the summer and hoping to avoid interruption with some of those, as I said, planned events already. 3 other schools in our conference are also doing a Thursday night graduation ceremony, so that's not necessarily an outlier. And we do have a couple that are still maintaining weekend ceremonies as well. Potentially looking to, if we needed to push it back, we do have kind of an optional August date of August 3rd. Again, just, you know, if we have to push it back due to health restrictions. And then that would be option 2. And then option 3 basically would be a virtual graduation, which is really a last resort and what we're hoping to avoid, if at all possible. Again, as you know, and you've heard me say before, a lot of this is just really hard to plan for because we just don't know. But what we do know is that May 31st can't work. As you know, Mark said, June for right now appears to be off the table. If for some reason restrictions are lifted and we're able to get together some sort of a ceremony in June, I think that would be more desirable than later in the summer. Otherwise, we've kind of handpicked that week in July to be kind of our designated graduation week, knowing that it's probably going to be fluid still. It may change, but at least giving families some sort of an idea of, hey, for right now, kind of book that week as when we're going to do some graduation type stuff, and we'll keep communicating and, you know, obviously updating people as we go. So, but I'm excited about some of the venues that Mark and I have talked about and checked out. You know, I think that this is a really cool opportunity to be able to give our students and families a totally memorable graduation ceremony that's kind of outside the norm, which I think, again, has the opportunity to be kind of fun. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
Thoughts, questions, comments on this kind of
Well, I
little-
just want to thank you, Shannon, for not just canceling it outright, because that has just broken the hearts of some seniors. And so just giving them some hope that the community can celebrate with them sometime over the summer, I think is huge.
Thank you for all your work on this. I know it hasn't been easy.
So my plan, unless one of you feels differently, I'd like to get just this initial communication out to families in the next day or so. As you can imagine, my inbox is starting to get a little bit more full with families just wondering kind of what the next step is. So I'd like to be able to just get some initial info. Again, that information is going to be heavy on, this is what we're thinking right now, subject to change, you know, kind of putting some of those things out there in front. But that's my plan for next steps.
So can I just clarify?
Yeah.
Shannon, are you saying we're going to aim for a date in June when it can be in person, and then failing that, you're going to plan the one in July?
So yeah, I know I'm working almost a little bit more backwards than I would like, because as of right now, the 2nd, June is not an option. You know, if in the next week or two, or in a reasonable amount of time, that restrictions somehow get lifted and we're able to do something in June, we may shift that planning somehow to the month of June. Just because, again, in talking to families, that seems to be, in a perfect world, more desirable versus the later in the summer that we go. So right now I'm planning for July, and if by some miracle something happens and we're able to get something going in June, we may look at that also as an option. But right now I don't have a whole lot of faith that is going to be a possibility. So I'm focusing more of my energy on July.
You know, one school of thought on this, Katie, is that, you know, we're at the stay-at-home order basically until the end of May. If that gets lifted, is it to groups of 10 or less or what have you? That would be the next logical piece. And if it goes to that, then we could possibly do this drive-in type scenario where parents are in the cars. We can space the kids out. They can walk across the stage. I mean, I think we can create a safe environment within the restrictions if that really happens at the end of May. So I think, you know, Shannon's going to put out, I think, some kind of drop dead dates in July, and then if we can get it in June, all the better.
I think that sounds like a good idea because, you know, even I've heard from a couple of parents who, you know, they just want to know dates.
Mm-hmm.
So that alone would be awesome.
Yeah, even frankly, even for me, when I finally kind of put this together, it's like a weight lifted off, because it's just kind of been sitting there for weeks and weeks and weeks of like, what are we going to do? How's this going to work? So I'm eager to get this communication out so we can start doing a little bit more planning.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay, if there's nothing else with the commencement, spring 2020 athletics and activities, Mark and Trent.
Yeah, you know, so we've been talking about this for quite a while, and what I sent out this last week is basically how the conference shaped up as far as how they're compensating spring coaches. That other caveat, as far as, you know, you saw my recommendation in there, but also that would have to come with some type of plan for if we run into this in the fall, and as we move forward, and how we're going to compensate, you know, the coaches and activities directors, because it's just not sports that were affected in the spring. You know, we've got our all our co-curricular activities, the music and what have you, that wasn't able to perform, but people are compensated for that. So again, you have my recommendation. There's only one district in the MBC that gave a reduction in that in those salaries. So I'd open it up for discussion and just need some direction on what you want to do.
Has there been any discussion about a plan for fall?
Everyone right now is trying to get through the spring here, and it comes up a little bit, but it's almost like we're avoiding even thinking about, having that deferred. But I would imagine those are going to be the next conversations we have, because again, this thing changes weekly. But as we go down the road here, I'm with the CISA soups and the MBC soups at least once a week. And it's kind of like we're taking it very methodically to see, okay, what's going to happen now. But to answer your question, there hasn't been any firm decisions or plans or direction from WIAA or anybody yet that I've heard. And Trent's on the line here, and so I haven't heard. I don't know if Trent has any updates as far as the fall. And you hear things that we won't return to normal till late fall or what have you, or the second wave will hit. But at this point in time, I haven't been privy to anything that would indicate we're going to have a change for next fall. Trent?
Correct. Yeah, the WIA hasn't come out with anything in regards to fall. I'm actually going to be on a webinar on it's either Wednesday or Thursday afternoon that more of a national organization with a panel of athletic directors from across the country are going to just be talking about forecast scenarios for the fall. So it'll be interesting to see what we can learn on that. But yeah, it's no official word from the WIA at this point.
Well, I think we should be proactive on it, though, because we don't want to be caught in this same situation again. I think it should be put on a work session maybe for July or August, so that we're kind of ahead of the game, so we have a plan.
I think July would be good. We'd have some pretty solid direction by July.
Trent, could you give us a little follow-up maybe after that meeting? Just shoot us, maybe the board or Mark, an email.
Yeah.
Kind of what you guys discuss, and just in general, I don't have an issue with compensating all the spring activities, athletics, 100%, like the majority of people had. I think it's just, like Kathy said, we don't want to set a precedent for the fall that, hey, we're doing the same thing again. This kind of jumped on everybody last minute, and like people have said, it was already going, and they were trying to push to keep kids going this whole spring. So I don't have an issue there. But yeah, if you could give us an update, Trent, that'd be.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so the only thing I would need from the board is if you do, if you're okay with my recommendation, we can just go with that. If you want to see something different, then it would have to go on our next agenda for some type of action.
Well, I personally, and have had issues with paying the 100% for the spring. And I prefer to do the work up front for how we're going to treat anybody this happens to, whether it's prorated based on, the number of weeks worth of work we do. I'd like to be a solid basis that the board can depend on for making that determination. So we're, yeah, but I'm just one vote.
So perhaps this should be put on our regular session for May, I think it's the 18th, to have a vote on this. Typically, these checks don't go out until June.
Correct.
Lori, can you let me know, so what would we be voting on? I guess, are we doing 50%? Are we doing 100%? Are we doing a 10 and 50 like New Richmond? I mean, are there options that we'd be looking at, or is it, because if we're going one way or the other, all or none isn't, I don't think, acceptable either.
I think we would have to have motions on the floor to vote on.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, we'll put it on the next agenda then. And the other piece is, though, and I think Katie, this is what you were alluding to, whatever we do, I think we need to determine how we're going to face the fall sports and how we're going to do that. And those conversations we're going to start having now, I imagine, as the picture becomes clear. But that would be my recommendation, is to go into the fall with a different plan or an alternative payment plan.
Is there a way, Trent, that maybe you could have the coaches and assistants put together something that like shows the amount of time they put in? And I know that there was some virtual training going on. Can you give me some sense of that before we vote at the next meeting?
Yeah, I can get examples and things of that they're doing. I think what we'll find is, across from sport to sport, there'll be variances with that. But I can certainly compile
But
something
I
and
can
get them.
average it out. That helps me put the work into my mind.
And not just for sports, because this is not just sports. This is
Correct.
music and band. And so we kind of want to, I agree with Katie. It'd be nice so that if a taxpayer comes and says they got paid and they didn't do it, we can say, yeah, they did do it. And here's the hours and the time and the effort that these coaches put in ahead of time. I would love to be able to have some ammunition on that, because you know how I feel about this issue.
Okay.
All right, if there is no more discussion on number 8, number 9 is Trent as well, WIA membership renewal.
Yep. So this is an annual action that the board takes to renew our WIA membership. They ask that this is completed so that way we can have it sent to them by August. They always recommend getting it to either a May or a June session just to ensure plenty of time. So got it on the work session for tonight just to get everybody informed, and then we'll bring this back at the May regular session for approval. They do not charge fees anymore to be a member of the WIA. They started waiving those back in 2015. So this is a typical action that we take every year.
Thank you. Thank you for putting it on the work session so we have time to talk about it before we vote. Any questions or comments on this? Then Trent, number 10, wireless system.
Yeah, so we're going out for an RFP for a wireless system for the multi-purpose room. Has to do with our microphones. So just to kind of give a little bit of a backstory, our current system, it's used for theatrical productions, our musical and our plays, concerts, professional development, large group assemblies, community ed events, banquets are held in there. We're running into two main challenges with this. Number one, the FCC frequency changes that will be taking place later on this summer. The frequencies are being set aside for wireless cell services. So a lot of people are running into this where their microphones, in a lot of cases, aren't compatible with the frequency changes. And then part two is the age of the system that we currently have running into issues. Kind of discovered this last fall when we were running into issues with our light board in our multi-purpose room when leading up to the fall musical. So at the time we worked with a vendor to look at that and started looking at a wireless system, but due to cost, we just didn't proceed on it. Obviously we're going to RFP just due to the cost of this type of a project, because it would exceed likely $10,000. Partnering with George and with Dave on this, this would exceed our athletics and activities budget because it is a larger purchase, one they don't typically would account for. You just don't have room in your general budget for that, but it would fall within the district budget. So I got to give just a lot of credit to both Jamie Pelbicki and Eric Posel, just their expertise and them being able to weigh in on this and kind of what they feel would be the best needs for us and for our program. So again, our goal is to have a consistent system for our theater productions, concerts, large group functions. And also because we have students that run the system, we want to make sure we have something that's consistent. What we're also looking for with this is down the road, if we were to have an auditorium, something that could easily transition to that, or when we upgrade the gym sound system, which is something that will be need to be done down the road, something that can be used interchangeably, so that way you're not running different systems and different microphones and things like that.
Great, thanks.
Does anybody have any questions about the sound system? And then this will be on the May agenda as well for
Yes.
approval to go to
For
RFP.
approval. Yep.
All right. Then Spartan Kids Club discussion, Mark and Leslie.
Leslie's on here. Leslie, I'll ask you to unmute yourself here so you can join in when needed. So with the whole situation we're in right now, we're one of the few districts that opened up daycare for tier 1, tier 2 essential employees at no charge, which really cut Leslie's staff down by, what we say, a third, 2/3.
Yeah.
I mean, significantly. However, those people, as like our paras have been, like everyone else, have been compensated per their usual work week up to this point. So knowing that we want to do as much as we can for the community and try to, help out, Leslie got very creative, and she did some digging, and with her network found that we can go up to 50 students at the site here, and actually we can go up to 2 groups of 50 if they're segregated groups, as far as, and I mean that in a way of keeping them apart from each other. So our normal enrollment there is around 80 some students, I think, Leslie.
Correct.
I think at the what we have now, I think we'd probably see more parents enrolling their kids in this to begin with. So the thought is that we would, again, try to be parent friendly and what have you, but we would stop our free service at the end of May, and we'd go to we'd go to registration and enrollment at our daily rate of $37 an hour, but there was always on top of that was a $35 registration fee. We'd waive it for this year. And so Leslie feels that she can run 2 groups of 50 simultaneously in the building with the logistics and everything there. And then her other recommendation would be to keep her, she's going to need more staff for this, which some possibly more support staff, but could pick up some time there. But she'd like to continue the pay for her kids club people through May 30th. So there's a couple issues you need to weigh in with. First of all, I think it's just, do we have your blessings to go ahead with this, which we're okay safety wise and what have you with that. I think it'd be a good service. The other one, all of our employees' pay ends with the contract year, which is support staff and, teachers' contracts. May 8th is kind of our end of our year. So compensation for kids clubs employee would be something different than what you've done with the support staff and that. And I don't know what your feelings are. It's a recommendation out there. So Leslie, what did I miss?
I think you covered most of it. Just kind of a little bit of background, because I'm not sure how much everybody understands how that all works and how it all played out. And I don't know how much information, I need to share, but I knew all along we could have up to 50 kids and 10 staff, but according to the original order, we had to break them up into groups of 10 and run each individual groups of 10 as an individual program. So I would have to staff from 6 to 6, 5 groups, and keep them all completely separate. That's how the order read. And feasibly, from a staffing standpoint, a space standpoint, just kind of with everything being so new and everything being so, to be quite frank, afraid to be at work, working with frontline kids, we didn't have a huge need in the beginning. And 20 was a nice number. It was something we could manage. I could staff it. And it's really all we needed at that point in time. Since then, and people are starting to slowly go back to work and things, the need is now starting to rise again. And I have connected with area directors and have had a lot of conversation back and forth about what's happening in the area. And in the midst of that conversation, found out that that particular rule of 10 does not apply to school age programs in a school setting, which changes the game a little bit for us and actually makes it easier for us to open back up to 50. If I don't have to run 5 individual programs, I can run one program of 50 and divide the group down, because that is best practice, but I don't have to run them all separately. So like to open us back up to that 50 starting this week, which won't do anything for anybody at this point. And that's part of then and get those kids off the waiting list that I have. I have about 8 kids on a waiting list. I could get them started as early as Wednesday of this week. And then slowly transition from the free care in May into more of a normal, quote unquote, looking program for the summer starting June 1st. With that happening, we would go from 50 enrollment up to the 100 kids as a possibility. And as that happens, staffing would obviously, hours become more available for them. They would become more normalcy in terms of what they're used to being compensated for. The month of May is really, really iffy because I can only, I don't want to overstaff just to pay staff. So I only want to staff for the numbers we have. And I'm fear if the staff have to go too long without hardly any compensation when they're used to working almost 40 hours a week when school's out, I may lose people, and then I won't be able to have this program start in June. So that's kind of my background of what led up into this conversation. So I would like to get information out to families about how this is going to work, if in fact it's a go, come June 1st. By the end of this week, beginning of next week, so that I can get registration held and get everything back in, and then really be able to look at logistics of the building, staffing, and all of that moving forward for a June 1st start date. So I don't know if any of that helps or not, but if you have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
So Leslie, do you have any idea how much money we're talking about here to compensate these folks during that odd part of May?
Yeah, this comes out to about a little under $4,000 a week in compensation for all the Kids Club employees. So you're looking at about $12,000 less. Leslie, if I don't know, in the next few weeks as you build the numbers up, if you put people on there.
Right.
So as a program builds, more of them would come back to work.
And the more kids that come in, they pay for it. I mean, in the long run, the more kids we have, the more money we have coming in now that it's not free.
Correct. And that would start June 1st.
Right.
For the proposal. Yep.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for looking a little outside the box, because I'm really pretty involved with the elementary aged kids and their parents, and they're panicking because all of these folks are being or they're going back to work, and now they don't have summer school and they don't have any summer activities. You are going to be a lifesaver. We are going to be a lifesaver. And I think that's really important right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And I do anticipate that, I don't know if we'll get to 100, but I do think we'll have more than 50. So I do really think that as of June 1st, we'll be running 2 programs independently of each other. And, being able to offer that up to 100 kids, I think will make a big impact. So
what a great problem to have. We have 100 kids. That would be fabulous.
And if I could just say this for the record, that, the staff in the beginning were really, really nervous about being at work in the midst of all of this. And the first couple of weeks, everybody was a little bit hesitant, and yet they came to work. But as things have been progressing and we've been moving forward, my staff have done an outstanding job. I mean, I feel very blessed to be the leader of this group, and they all come to work with smiles. They all have been very helpful whenever anything has come up and we've needed extra support. I feel very, very fortunate for the group we have, and I would hate to lose anybody. So that's part of my reason for asking for that compensation.
Absolutely.
Mark, how would this affect if we are able to have summer school in July and August? Are there going to be space issues with
Sure.
two groups of
Yeah, so that was one of the concerns with, that we had to look at with running an expanded group here with the kids club. But, Bill, worked with Bill, and I talked at during our construction meeting today about scheduling the work over at the elementary school. Now, Leslie's program is very flexible, and they can be in one room one day, a different room the next day. So it's going to be it's going to be a chess game, but it'll work out. The plan originally was that Kids Club would run through the summer. It was summer school that we were going to have a problem with. Now, with the way we advanced the work on the elementary school to the front half, we're still holding out that we may be able to have a face-to-face traditional summer school the last week of July and all of August. And so, again, that's why we flip-flopped the construction and summer school to where it is. So right now we feel comfortable that I don't think we're going to get the green light on a full summer school program in June. But, again, July and August may be a different story.
And we're prepared for that. I mean, really, the way the program was set up originally, it was just flip-flopped. And so now if it happens at the end of the summer, we'll just take a look at logistically how that looks and what makes sense. And, we're pretty flexible with space-wise and things like that, as long as we're abiding by whatever the orders are. And we'll be able to increase those things with group sizes and things as hopefully the summer goes on too. So, I guess I personally don't foresee it ever being an issue either. I'm willing to do what we need to do to make sure that both could happen simultaneously if need be, or we wouldn't run during the summer school program, which would open up those spaces too. So I think there's a lot of ways to make it happen if it comes to the point that we're able to do it all.
Some of our surrounding districts have already thrown the towel in on summer school. We're holding out hope.
Leslie, I have some other questions about the health rules. I know with our construction firm, the employees need to fill in a piece of paper every day. And, I've heard things about checking temperatures and can you tell us about what kind of protocol you have for the kids and the employees?
Yep. So I actually, and I can send it to all of you if you're interested in just seeing it. But I actually have drafted a Kids Club protocol that that went out to every single family and staff, so that everybody is on the same page about what we are doing precautionary to keep everybody safe in the midst of all of this. As of right now, parents drop off at the door and a staff person meets them, so there's no additional people in the building. They make a phone call and then we go let them in. Same thing at pickup. As soon as kids enter the building and staff enter the building, we're washing hands, and then that's done all the time, constantly washing hands. We are wiping everything down and disinfecting several times a day. We have the social distancing in a group of young children is difficult, but we do our best and remind them that they need to spread out. We've put things in place like only 2 kids on a rug at a time. We've actually put X's on the tables of the benches of the tables, and they have to sit at an X when they're at the table. So for lunch or any kinds of activities or anything, they have to be on an X, which then automatically separates them. When they stand in line, we have X's on the floor to where they need to be. Equipment and some things like that, like when we go to the gym, everything's wiped down before we leave so that when we come back, it's clean. We haven't required masks or anything like that at this point. And parents have been really pretty good about, communicating with us should a child be gone as to why, and nothing has been any kind of red flags so far. So I feel like we have a pretty good handle on that. And that's why even with the 50 kids, I would still suggest that we do best practice and divide the group down some, just because it's easier to still maintain those protocols with a group of 15 versus a group of 50. So
Thank you.
Leslie, do we ask any questions of the parents? Like, have they been in contact with anybody who's tested positive? Do we have anybody that been in contact with any symptoms? I mean, I know we have a checklist, it's like Mark and Johnson, you have to check in, answer these 5 questions every single day before we even get into our site. So I'm just wondering do we do the same thing for?
So we haven't done it on a daily basis, but it's part of the protocol that there's very specific instructions should they come in contact with anybody or somebody in their family comes down to it, what they need to do by informing us. We started taking temperatures, but to me, it just doesn't make sense because I don't know.
I don't think it's needed either. I mean, we've told people to take them at your house before you show up if you're concerned. You should be doing that.
So, we like I said, and right now we have a group of 20 versus 50. So when we get to 50, maybe we want to look at doing something a little bit more structured in monitoring some of that. And I would welcome maybe implementing that just because it is going to be a bigger group of kids and especially when we get to 2 groups of 50, even though they're completely separate, they're on separate side of the buildings, they have separate group of staff that won't be commingling. But that's a lot of kids in comparison to what we've been doing. So I do think that there may need to be a few more safety protocols put in place, just for peace of mind, if nothing else.
Thank you. I just don't want to have a big outbreak at our school because
me neither.
We don't want to be that central, so we can stop it on the way in.
Yeah. And what I've been instructed, or what we've been instructed by DCF, Department of Children and Families, is who we look to for all of our orders, is that should a parent or a child in our program come down with COVID or have exposure to it, I have to immediately contact our health. I mean, there's a protocol I have to follow, and they will then give us guidance on what our next steps are. And it may mean close our doors for 2 weeks. It may mean, depending on how that, and that's all spelled out in the protocol that goes out to parents as well. And it will go out, for the month until this is all lifted. I probably will send it out as just kind of a reminder, refresher to parents so that it's fresh on a monthly basis.
Great. Sounds great. Thank you so much. So do we need to have a motion or can this wait until May regular session?
Well, that was one question I was just going to ask you. If you'd like to put the compensation piece on the May meeting with the coaches.
That's what I would prefer. That's what our policy is.
So you can think about that. So we can do that.
Is that all right, Leslie?
Sure. So what happens between May 8th and May 18th? That's going to be the big question. Staff aren't going to know if they get paid or not, other than the few hours they're working. And that's why, we'll figure it out. But it is somewhat time sensitive, I think, just because of the time frame we're in. But
I think you need to, we're creating 2 different standards here with support staff and our kids. I think you need to think about how you want to approach this, if that makes sense. So I would say, we get it on the next meeting agenda for action. I have all the numbers here as far as what does cost, and so I'll send that out to you. And I will say that most districts have gone to pay for work after their school year ends, which ours is May 8th. So just so you have that information, I think I put that in my notes this weekend. So you have that. So again, like Lori says, that's our protocol is to, put it on a business meeting agenda for that. So you okay with that, Lori?
Yeah, Leslie. I believe we have a fair amount of support staff who also work for Kids Club. Is that correct?
Right now I have 2. So I have one that's actually been helping me lately in the midst of all of this. And then I have another one that comes back every summer.
Right.
So, and then I have That's not true. I have 3 because Lori is also a school district staff. So I have 3 people that also have positions as like paras or whatever during the school year.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks.
Then
I have a question. This is Roxanne.
go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Is the thinking of, as far as the coaches' pay and activities director pays, and also the kids club, are we hoping to be consistent with that, or is it not comparing? Is it apples and oranges? I'm just wondering if we need to be consistent with our decision on all of those people that are wondering about their pay.
Yeah, I think it's 2 different questions there in my mind. You know, where we have the coaches and the activity people, you know, these are, you know, this came up very unpredictable and what have you. And then we look across the Middle Border Conference, which, you know, we use as a reference because we belong to a conference as far as what they're doing also. And, you know, the vast, all of them except for one is paying the full contract price. And again, recommending that we have the caveat of how we address next fall. But as far as, and that's why I was mentioning that, you know, with the support staff and, you know, our yearly employees, we decided to honor their compensation through the end of the school year, which, you know, the support staff contract is at the end of the, you know, they're kid related. So when there's no kids, they're not in for the most part. Now, Kids Club is a little different because, you know, their year doesn't end. You know, it just doesn't end. So, again, whether we see a different standard there if we pay them or not, you know, that's up to you. But again, all the districts have gone to no work, no pay after the school year ends. So again, we're in a gray area here, Roxanne. I mean, most of the things we're doing, I don't want to say we're flying by the seat of the pants, but we have to, you know, kind of sit down and talk about these things and figure out what direction we want to go, you know, with this. There's no set pattern for it. So whatever the board decides, you know, we'll put into play. I just tried to get as much information out to you as you can so you feel comfortable making a decision.
Okay, and then I have one more question. Is Kids Club self-sustaining? Is the revenue brought in by that pay all the costs, or is it?
Yes. Typically, yes. Well, this year, probably not.
This year will be a little different animal because, you know, we gave that, you know, the free care away to first line workers, and we were one of the few around that did that. So that was, you know, the board did a great thing for the community.
And so that was for all of May, all of April, and half of March.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the potential, if we decided to pay staff through the end of May, chances are very good that money is made up next year.
I don't think that Kids Club makes a profit, it just breaks even. Is that correct, Leslie?
I would need to consult with Dave on that because I'm too new to really know where it has been in the past.
Yeah, Dave's on here. Dave, do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know the budget for Kids Company.
That program has historically been a slight money maker, slight surplus, so it has made money year over year. There has been some restructuring, so it's those margins have gotten thinner. But part of that is balancing each year of wages and program priorities against the changes in fees that are charged. So it is intended to be self-sufficient, and it has historically added to a small fund balance in Fund 80.
Didn't you say that we're paying, so the end of the school year is May 8th, and then if you're doing work after it, we would be compensating people. So if Kids Club starts after May 8th, won't we just be paying them? I guess I'm not understanding how we wouldn't be paying these people if we're asking them to work next week.
So my question was where the pay after May 8th is you get paid for what you work. My request is that the staff that are still working with kids in Kids Club would still get their school year full wage until the end of May, because their hours, there's not going to be enough hours to compensate them even close to what they would be used to when school ends because of this transition piece. And they've been showing up for work every day, working with the front lines. I feel they've earned it and deserve it, and that's why I've requested it. I don't want to lose anybody over 3 weeks of pay. We've got a good program. We're continuing to improve it, and that's why I'm asking for the request.
And June 1st, it starts the work for pay, basically.
Correct. So then June 1st, we would transition to you get paid for what you work at, and we would be offsetting that by charging a fee for the program as we move into our summer programming.
Okay.
So does anybody feel comfortable making a motion at this time, or is it the consensus that we wait until the regular session?
I just think this one's really time sensitive, but I don't know how these things, me being new, I don't really know what we can do, but I do feel these people are sort of left hanging, and I wonder if there's some way that we could make a decision today.
I think there's a sense of urgency on this one, in this case here. I know we want to stay consistent with our fine arts and our spring sport, and I think we have a little additional time to come to a decision on that one. However, this one, looks like we're going to be, reactive versus proactive in this situation. So I'm comfortable making a motion, to pay them from their requested time through May.
I'll second that, Lori.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
As well.
I'm sorry, Roxanne, I missed that.
I agree with Bob. I like that idea of supporting them through this time, especially, it sounds like we have a great staff, and I would hate to lose them. And Leslie, it sounds like you have some great plans for the program going forward, and I feel like it will be a good investment.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor then?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously then.
We'll take care of it.
Thank you.
All right, next then, the summer school update.
Okay. At one of our last meetings, we talked about, what can we do for the community? What can we do for parents that want more services over the May and June area time span? And so what we did, we did a survey of all the elementary and middle school to parents, asking who would be interested if we offered some programming. And the survey came back. We had roughly, I'm just going to throw this out here, probably 20 to 30% of the different grade levels respond saying yes, we would like some additional help over the upcoming weeks. And the reason we only did it for a 2-week span, so we could see how this works, and and again, at the time, we're trying to still feel out what's the state going to do as far as the restrictions. So we just bit off this first 2 weeks as kind of a test case. We could duplicate it into June for another 2 weeks or another 4 weeks, what have you. but we really need to see how this will work. And so what we came up with was a plan that we have enough for basically one staff member per grade, and the Kristens, have been working with securing staff, and they're working on curriculum for that. The big question was that we didn't know until just this last week who's going to pay for this, and that's why it was on there, because the question was going to be to you as a board: if we don't get state funding, do you want to foot the bill for this? And so now we did just hear that we will be able to be compensated for this. Now we're waiting for the details of that. How are we going to be compensated, and what have you? So, that was our big hang up right there. I think the way the program will run, they want to get registration, and they want to get the technical pieces of it. But basically, we're going to run that 2-week session, the last 2 weeks of May, for really anyone who wants that. But again, the turnout was, I think the response was roughly around 20-25% of the different grade levels. And as you went, the higher you went, the less response there was. Now, when we put this out there, we could get more kids, and they'll just have to adjust with staff. But again, it's the online scenario again. And so we're working out the details on that. So questions that you may have with that setup.
Kristen and Kristen, I see you're both here. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't necessarily have additional pieces to add other than that, we have some really enthusiastic staff who are excited to continue to be available to students and connecting with students and families who are interested in that support. And so just really excited to kind of see what we can offer in May, and even potentially growing what we offer in May in June to get some more creativity, get some more opportunities for our kids to experience some real different virtual online academic learning. Again, just kind of depending on what we sort out with the rule from DPI.
And I would add that we have a large amount of staff that are really excited to do something with and for kids this summer. Very, very creative, out of the box ideas, and really wanting to be doing something, being with kids, of course, but doing something for kids.
Does this include the parents? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Does this include the support staff involvement also, or is it just the main instructor?
Just teaching instructor. We're going to try what we can do, and hopefully through Kids Company, we'll get some of the support staff. The summer school piece right now, the way it is just teacher-based.
I saw in Mark's weekend update that you're looking at 1 teacher per grade level, and I understand how that works at the elementary level, but how can you help me with how that would work at a 7th and 8th grade level when you have, teachers who are licensed in one area?
Yeah, and Sarah Eichten can jump in too, but they're not licensed in one area for the most part. So we're currently looking at a couple scenarios where it's possibly 1 math, 1 language arts, 1 social studies, 1 science, that kind of thing, or 1 grade level. And Sarah's going to help us kind of suss out, once we get the numbers and the staff that would like to participate, to decide who best fits where. Did I miss anything, Kristen or Sarah?
So at this point in time, Mark, would this be an additional expense to the school district, or would it be paid for through what we get from the state?
Well, that's what we're, again, we don't know the details of the funding. We'll know that. I think tomorrow's meeting, they might clarify that, but it would be like our typical summer school revenue. Again, but we're waiting to find out just what that will be. The big thing is that there will be some funding. And I think, I kind of went at this with the attitude that even if we had to pay for it, I think we'd do it, just to help, help people in the community and kids that want, want more information. But we'll know more about that. I couldn't tell you exactly what our hard costs on this would be and where the break even is. This is all, again, it's all new.
Well, in the past, summer school has certainly been self-sufficient.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you the exact numbers on that. Dave's online here too, but yeah, and we have a great summer school program. It's just, we're getting thrown in the deep end of the pool here. We're going to see how we're doing at treading water.
So because this is likely to not have a financial impact on the district, is this something that you can just go ahead with, or do you need a motion from the board?
No, I think this is basically an informational item. If there was a financial, if we knew right now there was a financial issue, definitely it would have been something that I'd want you to, take action on. But right now, we're trying to run as close to a normal summer school, which we know that's, not going to happen. But we're trying to do something, trying to offer the parents something.
But this 2 weeks would start May 18th, correct?
I think isn't that the date? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, May 18th through the 29th. Take away Monday, Memorial Day. So it's nine days of instructional time that the teachers will have with their enrolled students. And we set it up really based off of a 3 hours a day platform or 27 hours of staff pay for the 9-day period.
So you need to get this information out to parents and you need to get your staff lined up, right?
Oh yeah.
Correct. We have our staffing information in terms of who's expressed interest in this model based on the expectations we've laid out for staffing. And we have a registration form ready to blast out in Infinite Campus as yesterday.
So when will that
as soon as possible.
So when will that be?
We are hoping tomorrow morning. Just need an official thumbs up that we can send it out tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and that between Shannon's graduation note that she's putting out and this, I didn't want to put anything out until we had this discussion in case there's some other ideas or changes from the board's point of view. But they're ready to go.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item?
I just want to say thank you for moving forward on it. And I knew the teachers would come up with new and innovative things. I just knew they would. I never doubted it for a minute.
Thank you. Mark, would you like to talk about the CISA contract then?
No, but I think Trish does.
Ready for me to jump in?
Yes.
Yep, we received your email. It was very informative. Thank you for putting that together for us. It answered a lot of questions, I think.
Terrific. Are there any other questions, or for the sake of Roxanne? Hello, Roxanne. CISA, there are 12 CISAs across Wisconsin. They are divided by region, and the whole purpose of a CISA is to serve kind of the unique needs of the community, the students within that region. We're part of CISA 11 along with 39 other schools, and this is an annual agreement that we sign. There are some required costs, and then there's a whole litany of different services that they offer. We go through and we see what is relevant to our strategic plan or the current state of the state or new standards that are being rolled out. And then we select which services we believe would be helpful to our staff. So you'll see this every single year. It's been pretty consistent the last few years based on our work.
So if there are no further questions, we can expect to see this on the regular session for voting.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
People's transportation contract addendum is next.
Can I ask Trish one question? Sorry, took me a minute to get off mute. Trish, what is the school-based services?
Let's see, which one are you referring to?
Under special ed, school-based services. Can you just?
I can explain that to you, Katie.
Okay, thank you.
So with our specialists who see students like a OT or PT, some of those services can be billed through Medicare. And so they, through CISA, help us with that programming and through that billing and through that process, and they support us through there. So we work with them as a company that helps us bill and get the reimbursement for that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, then Mark and Dave, the pupil transportation contract addendum.
Yeah, Dave will talk about that.
Thanks, Mark. So at the April work session, I mentioned where we were at with some of our bigger contractors, Safeway for transportation, Blue Ribbon for custodian, and Taher for food service, regarding the shutdown of the district. Blue Ribbon has, for the most part, continued to work. They will probably reduce staff a bit, and we'll get some credit for that. Taher is more tightly regulated by USDA and DPI as far as the contract goes, and they haven't requested any updates to that. So we're just paying on a per meal basis, and those are the meals that we send out twice a week. And then Safeway, they had requested that we have a discussion about what we could continue to pay so that they could continue to pay their drivers. And so I had mentioned that at the April work session, the outline of that discussion was going to Trevor, our attorney. He got the draft document back to us. We sent it to you for review and question. In the basic outline, you can see in the whereas clauses and then the actual agreement, the numerical agreements. The main approach was some compensation being the daily rates for routes, less fuel cost. We had stated that we wanted profit removed. We wanted drivers paid first. Any government assistance that they receive in the future was to be returned to the district from what we had paid them. And we had an unemployment clause where if the Safeway drivers qualified for the CARES Act unemployment, then it would be mutually beneficial that Safeway lay off their drivers and pass the compensation savings to the district as well. So that's the summary of the proposed agreement. Any questions about the clauses, the terminology, the approach?
Dave, I just have a question back on the meals. So are families paying for the meals?
No, meals are free.
And will that end May 8th?
No, the plan is to go through the entire waiver period, and right now that's through June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? Then this item will come back at the regular session for voting as well.
Correct.
I think Safeway would be interested in getting it approved sooner if that's possible. This has been a discussion since the end of March with them.
I think you need to unmute.
Sorry. I would be comfortable, I think, doing a motion just because we have had an opportunity to see it previously at a prior meeting and had an opportunity to get more information. So can I make a motion? Is that going to be proper?
I'm good with it. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to move to approve the pupil transportation contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I think when Bruce raised his hand, that meant he seconded it.
Break the Bruce down then. The nonverbal.
All right, so the motion is to approve the pupil transportation contract addendum. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
I like the paint.
Mark, I think school perceptions number 15.
Say that again.
Dave, thank you for your work on the contract and our best wishes to Safeway and their bus drivers as well.
Thank you,
And
Lori.
then Mark, if you would like to take number 15, the school perception survey.
Yeah, and just FYI, it's just information here. I think about a week and a half ago, I got the results of the spring survey that we're trying to do consistently every year now. This is the second year at the same time, and so what I've tentatively done is scheduled the presentation of the material for the work session in June. And who knows, by then we may be live and in person. And we have, I sent out some of the material to the administrative team, and this is the same protocol I used last year, because we're going to have a session with Sue Peterson just for the administrators to understand their building level responses and information and give them time to digest that. And then before we have this meeting in June at the work session, I'll send the information out so you have it a week or two ahead of time so you can digest it. So you'll have questions ready if Sue doesn't address them at that point in time. But, like last year, I wanted to give the administrative team an opportunity to work together, what they see, how they feel about it, and then have that session with Sue so they can disaggregate the data and how it refers just to their building. So I will say overall, it was a very good survey. When you look at that red and green chart that they had, there's a lot of green and very few red this year. So again, and I think that's reflective of just how everyone worked together through the construction, through our compensation plan, through the whole COVID stuff. There's a lot of comments and things like that on there. I think, everyone worked together. And so, there was some thoughts, should we even do one this year with the way the year is? But I think it's important to get a feeling on, the temperature of the culture, so to speak. So again, look for that. I'll be sending that out as soon as we get these dates firmed up with the school perceptions and the administrative teams.
So we should expect that sometime at the end of May.
Yeah, I would say after our next meeting. I think, we have, Sue hasn't gotten back to me with a date for the administrators. And then as soon as we can get that scheduled and go through it, after that, I'll send the stuff out. It's just that I want them to have a pretty good understanding of what's in the survey and what have you, because, I fully expect, you guys to start asking questions, which is appropriate. And, it just works better if they have an understanding, so to speak, because I've gone through the whole thing. I've read every comment, every, what have you. There's nothing earth shattering, but, they internalize it differently in their respective buildings. And see, they don't have it disaggregated to their building yet. And that's what we need to do. So anyway, answer your question, yes. Towards the end of the month, you'll get it. Sorry about the long way around on that one.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about the staff survey? All right, then, Mark, the governor's order.
Yes, and this, we're under orders, as far as, the school year. Our school year is basically ending the 8th. We're shut down, which technically means June 30th. But we're also with the stay-at-home or shelter-in-place. We cannot be responsible for people gathering. So I'm talking about safety and what have you. And you'll see on television all these different districts doing these parades or having students parade or gathering where teachers can say goodbye to kids and things like that. As far as my interpretation of it and other districts, we can't, actually legal from our association says, we cannot be responsible and dive into those. However, now here's what's been happening around the Middle Border Conference. Everyone has student things left in their desks and, yearbooks to pick up and all these different things. A lot of different districts are scheduling days for kids to come in or parents to pick up things. Now, I've basically said, no, we're not going to do that yet until we get a little more, farther down the road here, because nothing that we have is earth-shattering that has to go out. However, all these other districts are doing this. Our principals are getting hit on all the time as far as when can I get this fundraising stuff? When can I, get my yearbook and my stuff from my locker? So again, I just want to know how you feel. If you think we can coordinate some type of effort, I know we can, but I'm not going to be the one that says, hey, bring these people in. If you think we can distribute some of this stuff, let some kids or parents in at different times, we'll get this stuff out to them. And I think we can do it in a very controlled manner. And again, most districts are doing this, but I don't want to do that without your go ahead on this. And if you say, yes, schedule something in the next few weeks, we'll come up with a plan on what that looks like and I'll send it out to you. But again, I've held real tight to, no, we're hearing tight to the governor's order here.
I'm
Mark,
fine with picking stuff up.
I have two questions. First of all, I don't think the middle school and the high school are even safe for anybody getting out. I can't even go for a walk up there. I mean, it's crazy. The elementary, on the other hand, they might be able to. But here's what some elementary or other schools have been doing is staff has been going in, bagging everything up. So I go into Jane's desk and I bag everything. I mark Jane with a Sharpie and I set it out in the entryway. Or you set them in the gym or whatever, so that you don't have parents coming in. Just like when the elementary parents, we came in and we picked up packets and we just came in and picked up the packet. You would just find, oh, there's my kid's bag, there's my other kid's bag, and you walk out the door with them. The public is not in the buildings.
So what we've done, Catherine, you read our plan just now. So the middle school and high school lockers have all been bagged and they're over at the high school gymnasium. And so we already talked about how we would create access to the gym there. We'd do it within the construction area, the doors open right to the outside. That's not an issue. Elementary, they have that worked out also. It's just the whole thought behind it. If you want us to orchestrate this, we will do that. We actually have a meeting set up tomorrow to define exactly how we're going to do it. If the board says, yes, let's do that.
Well, I think you should. That's my opinion. And I know parents want their kids' stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else? That's okay. We'll move forward with it.
Well, I'd like to hear from the principals. Are you getting, is this a big concern with parents? I'm just kind of surprised that they.
Yes. I pretty much after we shut down, it was, when can I get my kids' stuff out of their lockers? We've had it all bagged and tagged for 5 5 weeks at least. It's been set to go. We also have the added piece of the ceiling tiles at the middle school that we promised kids that wanted to come back and get their ceiling tile that we took down. Those are all also set to go. Our yearbooks in all 3 buildings have either arrived or are due to arrive this week. So getting a lot of those questions as well. So yeah, I mean, we have parents definitely asking, if kids have stuff in Phi Ed lockers, those are tennis shoes and other items of clothing that they're going to want to be able to use, those kinds of pieces. So yeah, we've been getting lots of questions, but we can make it work with the curbside pickup, which under the order is allowable.
I would agree with Sarah too. I'm getting a lot of questions from students in particular at the high school level who, again, if we kind of work backwards a little bit, when our kids marched out of the building on March 17th, that plan was for them to be out of the building for 2 weeks, and they haven't set foot back into the building since. So many of them still have items that they are hoping to get back sooner rather than later. For me at the high school, probably the biggest issue right now is we are holding all of the caps and gowns. So we have senior parents and students that would like caps and gowns for pictures. This year, we are allowing our seniors to decorate their caps as kind of one thing we can hopefully do to make this a little bit better for them. So they want access to those caps to be able to start decorating those. So I agree with Sarah. I think because we've kind of thrown around some different ideas of some ways that we can do this in a safe manner via the curbside pickup plan. So I know we would all appreciate being able to do this sooner rather than later.
I totally agree. I totally agree with middle school and high school. We also have desks full of things. Some kids have their desks still full of their materials. We also have fundraising things that the parents had purchased fundraising things that they'd like to come pick up. We have classes that ordered Mother's Day gifts that they'd like to come pick up for Mother's Day. Clay pieces in art class. Miss Amy Stevens has boxes of art stuff that she's boxed up. I mean, we literally have, I don't know that it can be done in a one drive up. We're going to give it a try, really, to make some big bags for a one drive up. And we figure we'll just drive up, use our 2 ways, okay, there's your stuff, bring it out to you. It should work just fine.
If it's important to you and you want to go ahead with it, it's all right with me. Anybody else?
Please
Me too.
do.
Yes.
Definitely.
I would just like to make sure that people are using the proper tools to do it. That's
like masks and gloves?
Yep.
Well, like I say, we already scheduled a meeting tomorrow to define all of our procedures and how this is going to work. As soon as we come up with that, I'll send it out to you so you have a heads up on what we're looking at.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Great. Next is topics for action. Personnel update, payment of Market and Johnson. And this site change order is in this item.
Lori, I'll make a motion to approve 17A, B, and C.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Is the 121,000 a firm number for item C?
That's what came through on the change order request, that number there.
Okay. Yep. If there's no further discussion or questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, this is Roxanne. I have a question.
Yes.
Is the personnel update point, is that regarding, let's see, just making sure I have what I need here. The resignation of Katie Francis, is that it?
No, I think that was last week or last meeting. There's one resignation and it's a support staff person.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, you know what I'm looking at? I think I'm looking at the weekend update document.
Okay.
Where there was a mindfulness, AODA and mindfulness position.
Right. That's something something different.
Okay. So that's not for discussion today?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay.
So the personnel update is only the resignation of one support staff member.
Okay, and I did see that. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure. So I'm going to ask for the vote again. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Once around the table. Katie, would you like to start? You're
Should
on the
explain-
top row
explain
in
this
my-
to
on my
Explain this.
screen.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
We're to the last item on the agenda, once around the table, and I said Katie was the top person on my screen, so I asked her if there was anything she would like to bring up.
But Mark wants it explained to Roxanne.
If you want to, Lori, if you want to explain to her just how once around table works.
Sure. Once around the table is what we do at the end of the meeting. And any issues or topics that you would like to be addressed at a future meeting, any questions that you have, any items that you'd like to be on an agenda, this would be a good time to bring that up.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't have anything this week.
Okay, thank you. Bruce?
Just a shout out to the staff for the senior recognition they did. I think that was last week. I think I heard them out going around all the seniors' houses and putting signs in their yard and cheering for them. So all the staff that did that, thank you to everybody. That's all I have.
Patty Jo?
I don't have anything. Just thank you, Katie, for bringing up for asking them to kind of itemize the athletic thing, because that was something I was wondering also. So thank you for bringing that up. I was trying to figure out a way to do it and I couldn't think of the words.
Bob?
Nothing. I mean, I think I just, again, with a shout out too about, it's tough, working in this type of environment. I know I'm having struggles communicating with, my staff, and I'm sure it's no different from, the admin team down to the staff and the staff to the kids. And I know this is really challenging for a lot of people. So I appreciate, the positive, things that are occurring. And, it was, again, really great to have some positive light shed on our community with what they did with the graduating seniors. So thank you.
Catherine?
Absolutely. I want to thank our staff, not only Shannon, but Leslie and the Kristens, just for thinking outside the box at this time. We aren't doing things as normal. And so the whole thought of summer school is huge. And Leslie Kids Club, offering all those slots is going to be just amazing for our community, and what a great resource we can be. So if we can come out positive on this, I think I really appreciate the outside the box thinking from our staff.
Roxanne, is there anything you'd like or questions?
I don't have anything. I just want to thank everybody for being so welcoming today. And I'm sure going to have a lot of questions. I have so much to learn. But this was a really neat experience, this first meeting. So thank you all very much.
And in addition to the staff, I'd like to thank all of my fellow board members. These meetings, that remote meetings, they've been tough. And this meeting tonight, it seems like it went for a really long time. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
One last thing.
Oh.
Once around the table was fantastic tonight. It just leads into this. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. And so wherever you can reach out, send out a nice note and that. And I think we all agree that they've been real troopers over this year, putting up with everything from construction and our lengthened school year and everything. I can't say enough about how the work they've done. And I know we're the envy of every CISA school because our year is ending this Friday and the rest of them have 4 or 5 weeks of virtual learning. So, anyway, congratulations to all the staff.
It's been tough. I certainly hope that we never have a year that's more difficult than this one.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Tasia, I'll let you take your pick on who's second.
Bruce can have it.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Just wait.
Oh, how do I get rid of this now?
Lori, did you have the adjourn time at 8:24? Oh, I lost her.
Yes.